So my name is Daire Conway. I am a film and screen media studies graduate. I graduated in 2017. Having completed that undergraduate, I decided I wanted to move abroad for a couple of years. So I got a CELTA qualification to teach English abroad. Spent 2 years abroad, obviously teaching English in Spain, and came home in 2019. Got a job just to save some money before taking the next step in my life or whatever. And then obviously COVID hit in 2020. So that's my story up until taking part in this program. Well, I've always been interested in design because obviously when you're, making a short film or writing a script, you're interacting with a lot of different stakeholders, certainly making a short film, for example. And you're actually designing a product, like you're all aiming for something. This case, it would be a short film. And I've always been kind of a creative thinker in that kind of way. So to me, when I was looking for something to do, when the pandemic hit, I heard about Springboard from many other people that were actually doing it too. So I said, well, for the year that's in it, I'd like to be proactive and do something slightly different to film and screen media. So I was just browsing around the internet trying to find something that spoke to me, and innovation through design thinking. Instantly, just the name itself kind of leapt off the screen at me, and I was like, "That's interesting. What's that?" I suppose for me, it was, there's a book that we had on the program, Designing Your Life, and in that book, they talk about basically creating an odyssey of your life, and prototyping different types of lifestyles that you would maybe like to live, and so for me, I was in a moment in my life. I'm 26. I started the program when I was 26. It was in October we started the program. That's my birthday around then. So yeah, I'm 26. As I said, I came back from 2 years living abroad, and I was kind of in a stage of my life, okay, I want to try something else. I know I'm probably not going to be pursuing film and screen media as a career. So design spoke to me. And so my expectations for the course were, if it's not for me, it's not for me. It's not necessarily something that I can bring to bear in my professional life like other people on the course. But what it did, I suppose, what I got from it was that I do love design. And specifically with my project, I found I love service design and even product design. So that's what I think the course does very well, is for me anyway, and maybe for people similar to me. If you think that you could be interested in basically becoming a designer, a design thinker, it really gives you, I suppose, the stabilizers to try it out for yourself.
Yeah. And Daire, your project definitely created a big impact. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah. So for my project, I designed a tool, or my project title was An Excavation into the Experiences of Recently Rehoused Single Women. So I worked with an organization called Good Shepherd Cork. And basically, Good Shepherd Cork have a service called the Support and Advocacy Service. And they deal with women who are recently rehoused. They've gone through the process of being homeless. They've been assigned a house. And so they need support services, obviously, in terms of reintegrating into society. So I worked with the service in trying to ascertain, basically trying to design a storyboard or a tool to basically show the experiences of these women. And we worked with those women to design basically a comic strip, a storyboard that would illustrate 3 different, I suppose, typical journeys. I suppose we're all quite familiar with the homeless crisis. But I suppose when we think of the homeless crisis, we think of, I suppose people living literally on the street. And of course, that's a huge part of the problem too. And rightly so, we think about that first almost, But it's a much more complicated issue, and it's a long journey. And we don't necessarily think of people who've been assigned a house as being, of retaining that issue. So I suppose it made a big difference in terms of lending a voice to that part of, or that cohort of women who perhaps do feel like they aren't really listened to. And also with the service itself, they raise that as well, that, even within the organization, maybe that the service being provided at the very end of this journey out of homelessness, they needed kind of help. And so I felt that it made a big difference there. And within the organization too, they've taken the feedback that we received from the wider client base on those storyboards about whether they're true for them or not, or what other issues or worries they might have. That's all data that they can now use, and they are going to use for applying for grants outside of the organization. At the end of the project as well, we designed we basically came up with a kind of a solution to tackle some of the issues, and that solution would be the creation of a social events coordinator, and that would work in tandem with the service. So the project workers would carry out their normal jobs, but to have a dedicated member of staff who would solely organize social activities for the clients that would tackle some of the issues like, fear or social isolation, boredom. So we designed a brochure, very low fidelity brochure, to basically circulate amongst the clients and just to get a sense, is this something you would be interested in? If this was a service that you could avail of, would you do so? So that's the stage we're at the moment. I suppose a highlight for me was just in semester one, we worked on a project designing the UCC makerspace, but just being able to work with a team of other designers. Obviously, for my own project, working externally with the organization, that was great too. But yeah, working with the first group on that project, just because we were all on kind of the same journey. And so as we were going through the classes, or, the teacher input sessions, we were able to then pretty much put those into practice immediately. And, I'm the type of learner that I find it difficult to just hear theory and sit down and try and soak that up. I need to, obviously get the theory, but then try and basically fail immediately, and repeat and repeat and repeat. So those early input sessions and those early project meetings, and especially just forming close relationships with the other students on the course, it was a great way to interact with the other students, because obviously with COVID and it being online, that can be an issue itself. But as I said, those early sessions, those early project meetings, I should say. Yeah, for sure. I remember the first class, I found it quite intimidating because, as I said, I'm coming from maybe a creative background, and the range of students, as you said, the diverse range of students that are there in loads of different industries, in pharmacy, in business, and maybe in banking as well. There was someone from Facebook even. It's just a huge variety of people. Yeah, I did feel at the start like, oh God, have I chosen the wrong course? Have I barked up the wrong tree? But I found quite quickly that once you start working in teams with when I started working in teams with the people on the course, that, I suppose when you're in a project group, all those kind of fears kind of just fall away. You have a certain goal in mind or something to do. And I found that, working in teams, I've always found that very comfortable to do. I work well in teams, and I think that translated quite well from film and screen media, where it's all project based really in that. For me, because it was a few years since I'd been in college, and even then, I suppose, to kind of use a cliche, I'm older and wiser now. So once obviously I got the dates, I always just put aside 20 minutes a day to just do some work, whether it be, doing literature review, just read for 20 minutes a day or write for 20 minutes a day. It made a huge difference for me for the assignments, especially in semester one. There are written assignments. And even for the final report, I was just constantly doing 30 minutes a day. Aside from that as well, just rely on each other, I suppose, the other students in the cohort. You'll very early on form WhatsApp groups and just writing and being like, what are your thoughts on this? This reading is particularly difficult, or, when do we need this submitted for, and all that jazz. I think you'll find that people are very, very supportive, especially even almost more so than they would be if were the course delivered in person. I almost found that there's a plethora of tools online for people to be able to use to rely on each other and stuff. So that's what I would say. Just 30 minutes a day and rely on the online tools. They're super useful.